Drowning in Sand, Chapter 1, The Convalescence by the Sea, Part 4. Map looks back. The pink dog moves her geriatric bones in her sleep, and her rear left leg is stuck between the tub and her owner's blub. Map says, I'll watch her some more. There's a cough from behind the wall, and the channel changes once more to a genitalia reconstruction operation. Tanya hiccups, burps, and then shouts, "Ehab," until a cancerous cough comes from behind the wall, and the channel changes again, and the hack continues. Map looks over towards Tanya, who's watching molars being removed on the screen now, and Map sits in his chair, getting tired from the pills he took after dinner, and tired from the pills he took later because he was bored. He might need some soon. Will need some soon. Sooner than later. Very soon. He closes his eyes for a minute. Tanya is quietly watching the operation on the med TV, and in the quietness, Map can hear the wind picking up outside. The wind is whipping the rank air around the house, and the waves outside are getting bigger, and the man-made dunes made from old Christmas trees and some broken horse skulls and old canvas bags, they're getting smaller and smaller. His eyelids are getting heavier now. Ah, woof, ah, harp, 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 ah. Miss Nevershe and Pistachio are exchanging screams of pain. Tanya is asleep on the sofa. A program on corpse embalmment is on the screen. The volume is off. No coughs are coming from Ehab's side of the wall. Tanya jerks awake and sits up. She hears the screaming giant in the tub, and she says, "Map, wake up." Map opens his eyes and hears Miss Nevershe's "ah," and the cherry blossom pink poodle is screaming in her own canine dialect, and she starts to pee. The old dog's urine rolls down the huge fat rolls into the nasty tub water with the dust floating on top. Ah! Map tries to get up out of instinct, and that's when an invisible spirit appears to hit him in the spine with a tire iron, or at least that's what it feels like to Map. He aborts trying to stand, and he wheels his chair around, and he finally gets a good look at her, at Miss Nevershe, at all of her, and he says, "Ah." Map glances from the tub, which appears to have bags of leaves in it, but the bags are made of flesh, the pulled pinkish flesh that covers all of the acreage that is Miss Nevershe. He looks over at Tanya, shakes his head and says, "She's huge. Huger." That's not even a word, and I told you earlier that she was. Then there's another scream of tormented agony from the tub, and the senior senile canine barks and barks and then passes out as her owner expands further. From the other side of the wall, there's an inquisitive cough, and Tiny answers, "We don't know, Ehab, we just don't know." Ah, and then she, Miss Nevershe, passes out in her tub. Light gray water running out from where her expanding, doughy flesh outgrew its welcome in the tub. Map says from his wheelchair, "Where's the phone? I need to call Dr. Degouge." There's some fumbling around between the sofa cushions, and Tanya hands Map his phone, and he enters a number and sweats while the phone is ringing. And he looks over at Miss Nevershe, and she's gotten even larger. He imagines folds of fat will be touching the floor soon if she keeps on growing. The doctor's phone rings. The wind blows harder outside. The waves keep getting bigger, and the dunes keep getting smaller, and the trash line out beyond the breakers is glowing a mint green. There's a cough from the other side of the wall, and then the television changes channel to a show about mouth cancer. It's a little later now. It's a little past midnight. Dr. Degouge is standing in the living room. It is dark outside, but the first thing he does is open the blinds and look out over the gray ocean. Tanya quietly takes her bowl of applesauce and leaves the room. Map hears her door shut a moment later, and then he hears a cough from the other side of the wall. The medical television goes to a breast enlargement surgery, And the doctor asks Map, is she still out there, burning? She, the ship? Yes. Is she still out there burning up? I would think you could see a glow out there. No, the only glow out there is a trash line. At first, on the first handful of nights, you could see a burnt orange glow over there near the horizon. It was really weird. But then, I guess with all the smoke and all, it just stopped glowing. Well, what can you do? Right, and hey, what can you do about this? About her? Who? Miss Nevershe. Who? Miss Nevershe? The whale? Yes, Miss Nevershe. Ah, the doctor rubs his dreadlocked red beard. Oh. And he looks at the folds of flesh before him, and he bends over and he feels the humidity coming from the enormous nostrils. And he looks for toes, but realizes he can't see any. Oh. And he reaches down to move one of the mildewed beach towels covering the meats and bounds of private parts. Then he pulls his hand back quickly as if he'd been burned, and he rubs his nappy beard and finally sighs and says, nothing. Nothing. Craps of fate. Nothing. This woman has been one of the more difficult and interesting cases I've seen in my years working down here with the convalescents at the units. Oh? Well, young man, have you seen her? I called you about her. I've seen her, yes. Then you know, I guess. In all my years, with the most difficult cases, the sickest, the dying, most of those cases I can at least understand. I have some idea of what's going on. Not just me either. No one for this one. This one's it's been a while since I've seen something like this. You said it too. Where? Huh? As I was saying, that's why she's here convalescing by the sea. Because, well, you know, what's to be done? I don't know. I have no idea. Most people don't, myself included in that statement. Map is silent. The baby pale pink poodle whines in its slumber. The mass in the tub grows. The doctor gets his finger caught in his beard, then removes it and says, well, maybe. And he turns and walks across the room to where he dropped his medical bag. He grabs it. He swiftly crosses back across the room with his index finger extended up in the air. Maybe if. And he plops the bag down into Map's seated lap, gracefully unzips it, and reaches in and pulls out a container of pills. He opens it, peers in. The pill container is the same color as his knotted bush of beard. And then he pours himself a handful of shamrock green pills. They're in his palm. He looks at Map and says, there's not much hope here at all. And he tosses 3 pills into his mouth. And then he signals for Map to open his mouth, and he drops 2 pills into Map's mouth. The poodle wakes at this point and looks over at the doctor, and the doctor responds to the dog with a gentle, oh dear Lord, old lady, you're gonna need more of these than anyone. He slowly feeds a handful to her as the old dog chews each pill one by one, and she begins to wag her tail after the second pill, burps after the 5th, and by the 7th, she is out cold again, her tail wagging in a narcotics-induced dream. The doctor feeds himself 2 more pills, and then gives Map 1 more, and says through his thicket of scarlet beard, this is where it gets unpleasant. Craps of fate. This is where it gets very, very unpleasant. For all of us. Very unpleasant, yes. And the whale in the tub snores, and the wind outside screams, and the dog in the tub howls as the doctor slowly saws off her rear left leg as it was mercilessly being amputated by being pressed against the enormous tub and the continental shelf-sized flesh that lives day in and day out in that filthy, tepid tap water.